Hey, what up, though? I'm gonna get started by creating a new ActionScript 3.0 document. This video is going to be about event listeners and mouse events. So I'm gonna save this as event listeners and mouse events. I don't say VA or video, your call. So, bam, saving that. To get started, the first thing we need to do is create two layers. Our bottom layer is going to be for art, so rename it to art. And let me get my keys out of the way. And the top layer is going to be actions, because we need to keep our code and our art separate. So I'm going to lock the actions layer, select the art layer, and we're going to need a movie clip to work with. So I'm going to create, let's say, a black square with no fill. I'm going to select it, tap F8, give it a name, call it black square, registration point in the center, and click OK. So now I have my black square. I need to give it an instance name though, so I'm going to select it and give it an instance name of BS. And so now that I've done that, I'm going to go onto my actions layer, click on frame 1, tap F9 to bring up my actions window. And now we can get started. So let's go ahead and put a comment and say event listeners and mouse events video. Yay, description. So what I'm going to go over first is something called an event listener. And what's an event listener? An event listener is something that listens for an event. So pretty self-explanatory, right? Basically what I mean is that this thing, once you add it onto your stage or your movie clip or whatever, it's going to sit there and listen and wait for something to happen. So the one I'm going to introduce you to first is clicking. So the mouse event, click. And the way we do this is first we have to tell it what we're going to add our event listener to. So in this case, I'm going to add it to the stage. So I'm going to type in stage, so lowercase, it'll turn blue if you did it correctly, and then put a period like we did with our properties. And just like we can access properties from things, we can access pre-made functions from things. So in this case, the function is called add event listener, just like that. And remember, a function, we have to open parentheses. And if you remember before, I was mentioning something about arguments, but I didn't ever put any arguments in, so we just opened and closed our parentheses real quick. But we're not doing that for this. This, we need to tell it, we need to give it arguments. We need to tell it what's going on or what it's going to listen for. So we've done stage.addEventListener. Now we need to tell it what type of event to listen for. Well, that is, we're telling it to look for the mouse event click. So we need to type mouse event. So you need to uppercase M, uppercase E. If you don't do this correctly, it's not going to work. And put dot and then click, all uppercase. This will make sure that it's listening for the proper event. The next thing that we're going to do is we need to tell it, we need to give it a function to run every time something is clicked. So right now I don't have an extra function. So I'm just going to write clicked on stage, and then we end our parentheses and end our line with a semicolon. So what is this doing right here? Let's put a comment, say we're adding a listener for mouse clicks on the stage, and make sure that's safe. So right now, if I were to run this, it would break, because what I've done is I've told it to add a mouse event, or sorry, add an event listener for the mouse event click to our stage, and the function it's going to call every time we click is going to be called clicked on stage, but I don't have that function yet. So let's create the clicked on stage function. So make some new lines. Let's put a comment. See, this function will execute or run whenever the stage is clicked. Stage is clicked. So there we go, comment. So now we need to actually create our function. So remember, we have to use the keyword function. Give it the name of our function, which needs to match what we have here. So it needs to say clicked on stage, and the capitalization needs to match as well. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it over here, so make sure that I didn't accidentally type something wrong. And now I need to give it an argument, because remember, we're passing it in the mouse event click, we need something to hold that event. And the way we do that is we need to give this a name. So I'm just going to call it E for now. And the type is a mouse event. And once I did that, you notice how on the top here it's saying import flash events, mouse event. That's just something it does to help it handle these things. Don't worry about import right now. If it happens to you, like I said, ignore it. If it doesn't happen to you, don't worry about it. Your thing should work either way. So anyway, this is all we need for this function, at least for the argument. So we're going to close it and tell it type void. It's not returning anything. So put our curly brackets and let me go over this one more time. So what's happening is we're adding a listener for mouse clicks onto the stage, and the way we do that, we tell it what we're adding our listener to. So in this case, it's stage. Then we put a dot saying add event listener. Give it the type that we're listening for. In this case, we're listening for a mouse event dot click, so the click event. And then we give it a function to call after or every time mouse event, or every time this listener gets fired off. So make sure you separate these two things with the comma in between. That's just how you separate out arguments for functions. So the comma needs to be there. If you're confused about what's going on, just do this exactly how I did and you'll be fine. So we have our clicked on stage. Now let's have it do something. So inside of our function, let's write out trace. Let's just say clicked somewhere on the stage. And let's put a period there. End it with parentheses and with a semicolon. So what's going on here? We're using our function keyword, and we're giving our function the name clicked on stage, which matches this here. We're telling it what to expect. So in this case, we're going to pass in the mouse event click to here, and E stands for event. So it's just going to take this event, pass it in. We're not going to do anything with that for now, so don't worry about it. And then our type of returning type void, we're not returning anything. So once we get in here, it's going to say click somewhere on the stage. So I'm going to save, and I'm going to run just to make sure this works. So Control Enter. And now every time I click on the stage, you can see in the output, it's saying clicked somewhere on the stage. And I can click anywhere on the stage as many times as I want. So that's nice and dandy. But what if we only wanted this to happen when we clicked on our movie, on a movie clip? Well, if you remember our movie clip, we named it BS for black square. And I'm gonna go back to I'm going back to my actions layer, frame 1. Do some stuff down here below our function. We're gonna add a listener for mouse clicks to our BS movie clip. So let's just say add a listener for mouse clicks to BS movie clip. And the way we do that is instead of stage.addEventListener, we do BS.addEventListener. And same thing, we're gonna give it the mouse event, mouse event dot click. So it's listening for a click event, put a comma, and now we need to give it a name for the function that's going to get run every time we click on BS. So the way, or I guess what I'm going to name this is, I'm going to say clicked on BS, and the parentheses, and end the line with a semicolon. So guess what we're doing next? We need to create our clicked on BS function, and I spelled clicked wrong. C-L-I-C-K. There we go. So now, what is this going to do? It's going to execute when BS is clicked on. So every time we click on BS, it's going to do whatever we do here. So function, keyword function to let it know it's a function. Name it the same as we did over here. So we're saying clicked on BS function. We give it a type. So we need to give it the arguments that are going to be passed in. So E for event, and then it's just a mouse event, and our parentheses, put a colon, give it type void because we're not returning anything, and put our curly brackets. one quick thing. So basically what this this argument we're passing in, or parameter as this might be referred to as, it works kind of like a variable, right? We're giving it a name and then we're telling it the type. So I've used the name E. You can type out, well, you can't use event because that's a saved keyword. Flash uses that for something else. So you can type EVT, or you can type underscore event. You know, it works just like variables do, but I just use E because it's quick, it's simple. E stands for event. So moving on, every time we click on BS, we're gonna say trace clicked somewhere on BS. And I'm going to period and the double quotes and the parentheses and the line of code. So I'm going to save, Control Enter to run. And now if I click on BS, it says you click somewhere on BS, but it also says I click somewhere on the stage. That's because wherever I click, it's on the stage, regardless of what I specifically click on. It's all part of the stage. But if I click on BS, it's saying you click somewhere on BS. So I can click on BS, click on BS, click on BS. So now we have something that works a little different when you're working with BS. So that's about it for this video. I'm going to go over this one last time in case you didn't get it. So what we did here is we tell it what we are first. Okay, when we're adding an event listener, first we're going to tell it what we're listening, or sorry, what object is going to listen for. So in this case, it's our stage. Put a dot like we did with our properties so that we can add an event listener. So and then we just write add an event listener, open parentheses, and give it 2 arguments. We need to tell it 2 things. We need to tell it what type of event we're listening for. In this case, we're listening for the mouse event click, and then put a comma and tell it what function we're going to call every time you click on the stage. And then we end our parentheses and end our line of code. So once we do that, we have to create the function that it's going to call, because we gave it a name, but then we needed to create it. So we used our function keyword. We named it clicked on stage, just like we did up here. We told it what's coming in. So what are we passing in? We're passing in the mouse event click. So we're going to use E to represent whatever that mouse event click is, and then we're just telling it what type. So it's a mouse event. So anytime I were to type E for this variable, or I guess you can kind of refer to it as a variable for now. But anytime I were to type E, I could access all the properties of the mouse event we've been passing in. So I could actually pull back things like where specifically I clicked on the stage in this case. So we're just passing that in. So when we end our parentheses, make sure, because remember, every time we open them, we got to close it. And then for this function, we're not returning anything, so we just tell it type void. So every time someone clicks on the stage, it's going to trace out, click somewhere on the stage. And then for our BS movie clip, it's very similar. So to our BS movie clip, we're adding an event listener for mouse clicks. And then every time it gets clicked, we're going to run the function clicked on BS. Same thing here, we create a function called clicked on BS because it needs to match up. The mouse event is going to be passed into here. For now, don't worry about it, but you do need to type this out. We're not having a return type, so it's void. And then whenever anyone clicks on BS, it's going to say click somewhere on BS. So I hope this all makes sense to you. If it does not, ask me questions, and then I will provide answers. Maybe, if I feel like you've been paying attention. But you've been paying attention. You're a good student. I know you are. I don't even know which one you are right now, but you're the greatest student of all time. So this will be pretty fun. One last thing, tip of the day. You can, if you remember in, let me pull this up, underneath programming class, right? I have the link for the API for ActionScript 3.0. Go ahead and click on that if you're curious to see what other type of mouse events there are. So I'm opening this up. If I go underneath classes and I type in mouse event, just like I did before, you can see there's an option for mouse event. If we scroll down to public constants, you can see that here's click. It's the very first one. These are all the options that you have for mouse events. So we can do things like mouse over, kind of like with our buttons. Remember, you hovered over our buttons. You can do mouse down when you're holding down over an object. And if you keep scrolling down, you can find some more information about them. But if you're curious just to see what other types of mouse events we have, they're all under public constants when you search for mouse event in the AS3 API. So that's it for this video. I've done enough talking. You're beautiful.